Tried to weigh me down, crabs in a barrel. Wanna take my crown, renegade. I'm lighting up the way. I'm inspired. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Power Table Conversations for Black Women. I am excited about the second season. We are bringing you Black women throughout the state who are going to share their brilliance, their beauty, about the issues that are important to us and about us. So sit back, stay tuned, and enjoy the show. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Power Table Conversations for Black Women. Hello, Miss Cathy. How are you today?
Hello, hello. I am fabulous and just excited to be here joining you today.
Well, thank you, thank you. As you know, the California Black Women's Collective Empowerment Institute is really focused on Black women, their quality of life, particularly around their economic lens. So I wanted to bring you on because we had you on a phenomenal panel in Oakland to really talk to us about what's important as we think about our economic journey. So, first, tell us just a little bit about yourself and your firm and how you got here.
Oh, lovely, lovely. The opportunity to speak about my firm myself. Cathy Jackson-Gent, that's who I am. And I've had Global Investment Company now. It will be 40 years in July
Wow, what a
that we've
blessing.
been around 40 years. And that says a lot about how old I am, I guess.
You look
But
good, girl. You look good. You look good.
thank you. We have been in Oakland that entire time, and starting in downtown Oakland. And when we started, we were primarily interested in working just in financial planning and helping underserved populations, particularly people of color, women, and small businesses get ahead in life as it relates to wealth management. And one of the reasons in doing that, I'm a San Francisco native. And I also went to a very small school in San Francisco, University of San Francisco. And what I found in growing up in San Francisco is that there wasn't a lot of information that was just freely available to me or to my household. And it could be because, you know, uh, just because that's just the way things were. But I started to realize that what we really needed to do was get more information out about finances, about economics, about planning, and ways to retire comfortably at the end of the day. So, being a double major, computer science major and management science major, I
All
decided
right now.
to focus towards the fifth year on management science because the small business part came into play. Many of us who have our businesses, we're typically working alone and may not even be able to get capital for a number of reasons. It could be culturally, it could also be that we just don't have stuff in order, our
Right, right.
paperwork, um, experience, team structure. So that's when Global Investment Company decided to add business consulting to our services. So we were just not financial consultants, we became business consultants. And so that led to working with municipalities.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And mainly because, when we're working in cities and counties in the states, we are working with community. We're working with people. A lot are not necessarily in the stock market. They may not even know about the stock market or how to engage in it. So we decided to step up to that plate and start engaging with municipalities who are saying, you know what, I really want to help our community too become more financially literate. So now we've got California and Arizona, and we're picking
Oh,
up other
wow.
states as we go.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. That is so wonderful. I loved how you talked about, how the journey of your business, that is, it's evolving.
Mm,
A lot of times business owners, they're like, oh, I'm going to just do this. But to be successful, you have to like expand your scope and be really reflective and reactive to what the community needs. So I love that. So, in terms of individuals,
mm-hmm.
We talk about a lot of the downstream social safety net. Oftentimes, we forget about the upstream, particularly as it relates to the economic safety net.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there are things that we can do individually that could help us strengthen that safety net. What are the things from the if we're just starting off, no matter what our age is, what do we need to keep in mind?
Plan.
Plan. Okay.
Plan, number one. Number two, fear.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that, planning, it's like map, right? It's just like taking a map A to Z, going from here to LA or here to New York or here in Europe. You're usually not going to go without having an itinerary.
True.
You know what
True.
plane you're going to get on, you know when you're going to land, you know where you're going to land. And if you don't, there might be some connecting flights at the airport, or they may end up switching you to, but you still at the end of the day know your destination. So, number one is planning. And I don't care if you're an individual or a large company or an entity. You can do short term or long term planning. And we focus on that. There's not very many people we work with that don't have some kind of plan. And it allows the people you're working with, your professionals, whether you're your CPA or people like me or your insurance agent, if you know your plan, we know your plan. The second is fear.
Mm.
We don't want to talk about it. And so I say to people, say something, even if it hurts. And when I say hurts, sometimes we cry because we keep so much inside of us that really it's fear. The fear of the unknown. You might say, well, fear of what? Fear of the unknown. Fear that if we do it and we don't make it, now what? Then what? My point to that is if you don't try, you don't know.
Right.
If we
Right.
don't give it a shot, you're not going to know. So if you've got uh, information that you've been given and you're not quite sure what it says, you get help. Sometimes you won't open it because you don't know what it says. It's gonna make you really really crazy. It's also one of those things where sometimes people are really concerned about what other people think.
Yeah.
It's serious.
Yep.
Whether it's the parents or siblings or our friends, we don't want people to know what we don't know. So it's so much easier to just cover it up and don't say anything. So my suggestion, besides planning, is to really reach out to someone. Um, when we look like each other, it's a lot easier to
Yes,
reach out.
absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm still here, by the way.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so interesting. Recently, we have here in Los Angeles, we have lost some of the properties of some of the organizations who have been staples
Mm,
in our community, safe
mhm,
places for us to go
mm,
to. And
mm.
one of the common themes among all of them is nobody knew. So there was never an opportunity for intervention.
That's right.
It was
That's why I'm
just,
bringing it up.
yep, that
It's
fear.
so common.
Yeah, nobody knew until it's
Nobody
so
knew.
far down that there's no way you can help.
Exactly.
Mhm. Yes,
Exactly. So
that's a
I
good
wave
point.
that flag a lot. And I say fear because that's really what it is. Fear of failure is fear of success.
Yeah. Yeah, that
And
is true.
just because we didn't make it that time, or things didn't come out right that second time, doesn't mean it's not going to work the third time or the fourth time.
Absolutely. So in that, so we plan,
Yes.
and then we get away from our fear. What
Right.
should be in our plan?
One of the very first things I want people to think about is when you think about the economy in general and all of the different things going on with the economy, that the very first thing you look at is yourself as the economy. Very first thing you look at is what can you bring to your own table, starting with you. Whether it's what kind of income, if you don't have the income, what kinds of resources that can bring you the income, expenses. If you don't know what you're spending, it's very difficult to save. or to even redirect what you have. So that whole idea of knowing your income and your earnings, I know it's all passe, right? This whole idea of budgeting, and I think that might be true for those who truly have no income. But if you are working, even if you're working paycheck to paycheck, you're in a position to budget. And I hear it all the time. Well, what's the point of budgeting if you don't have enough money at the end of the week or the end of
Right.
the paycheck to deal with that? Well, by starting budgeting, you have a pretty good idea where your money goes because most people, one of the first things they're telling me is, I don't know where all my money goes. I'm just not sure. So, yeah, you got to put it down. That way you know what's going on. Yeah, you look at the income sources, and if you don't have any, you're talking to somebody, whether it's like me or someone else who's helping you figure out different ways to make additional income. Entrepreneurship?
Right.
Come on. If you're not thinking about that, even while you're working full time,
Right.
then you're cutting yourself short.
Right. In your good years too, when you got the
In your good
energy.
years, in your good years. So, passion, okay? So what we need to be looking at, we need to be looking at our economic plan. We need to be looking at our income, we need to be looking at our expenses, and we need to be looking at our passion because it's the passion that drives the numbers. So
Right.
if you're working full time and you're not happy in your job and you're just getting your paycheck, fine. Okay, great. That gives you some foundation. So now it's time to really figure out while you're working, because eventually you're not going to be, what do you really love to do? Do you love to talk and discuss, lecture? You're an entertainer. You like to write. Um, you like to cook. All of that can turn into money. And
Mm.
if you don't have a plan going with that, chances of losing out is very, very high. Very
Mhm.
high. And what I'll also find is that a lot of times people will plan and they say they've planned and they move forward, whether it's a business or trying to save for retirement, and they really haven't planned. They really haven't. But they've said, oh, yeah,
Right.
oh, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And it's not. Part of it is the fear of people knowing, and the other part of it is just not knowing how.
Just not knowing how. Right.
Just not knowing how to
Right.
plan. That's
Yeah,
right.
I saw a report the other day that now that we have been, you know, 4 decades into 401, us managing our own
Yes.
retirement, now people are least likely to have enough money in their retirement than when it was a pension system where someone else
Hmm.
was basically managing our retirement because we just switched over to 401k. Nobody taught us how to, so we do the bare minimum,
Yes.
and we don't think of anything, right? We don't
Yes.
go and look. What advice would you give us around 401ks?
Well, thank you for asking. First of all, that pension probably never went away. We have 401A and we have 401k. That 401A, most people are looking, that's their defined benefit plan, by the way.
Right.
The 401k is a defined contribution plan. So typically, that 401A is that pension that someone is expecting to get when they retire. It may be 50% up to 80% of their salary, but that's what they're looking for. And so the idea is, okay, the employer is just going to keep putting this money away for us, and then eventually we will retire and we'll have that money. By the way, that is true. Most people don't know that you can also contribute to your own 401A while
Hmm.
they're contributing to your 401A. Part of what we're trying to do is educate folks so that they know they can do both typically. But if we don't know what our plan document says, we don't really know that we can do that. So having your 401A is very important because that's your pension. That's that money that's going to, it's like an annuity where it's going to give you that money for the rest of your life. If you have an employer that has a 401A plan, one of the first things I would do is ask the employer if I can contribute to that plan as well. Not me, but
Hmm.
you. Okay. So now you're helping them with that pension. Number two is your 401A, I mean, your 401k. That's your defined contribution plan, which basically means that you're contributing and they're contributing too. And most likely, your employer may be matching that, unlike with your 401A or your deferred comp, which is something else people don't tend to look at. You've got your 401A, your 401k, and you also have your 457. That's your
Mm-hmm.
deferred comp. We should be using all three of them. And then, of course, what we know is our Social Security. And we may also know about an annuity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you had all five of those, chances of having a really great retirement is awesome. If you take the 401k, that one even allows matching. If the employer allows matching in that plan, and again, we can read about it or we can ask them to find out. So let's say you're putting in $100 every month into your 401k and your employer is going to match you dollar for dollar, you're actually putting away $200 a month, not 100. If they only match 50%, then they're putting away half of that for you. So you're putting $150 a month away instead of 100. Now, I would ask anybody listening, who would leave free money on the table?
Right.
Knowingly. Knowingly, not very many.
Right.
So, you cannot borrow from your 401a, that defined benefit plan, that pension, but you can borrow against the 401k, and you're not going to be borrowing from your deferred comp. Now, you might say, why did I mention all three of those? One, you mentioned the 401k. I wanted you to know that you could contribute to the 401a if your employer allows you
Right.
to. That would give you that in addition to your 401k. And then there are the other ones, the deferred comp, that people just completely miss. Why? They don't even understand the word. I'm okay. I'm being real way. Deferred comp.
Right.
What is that? I don't
Right.
know. Well, let me go into something else because I don't know what that is.
Right.
And that's what we do. That's what we do. We don't
That's the
understand it, so
fear.
we just keep moving.
Yeah.
The fear of the unknown is
Yes.
what keeps us going. So I say to people, stop, understand that we are all get fearful. Let's get the information and invest in every one of them. That's what I say. Max out as much as you can. And
Right.
people are like, yeah, right. Like I can make that kind of money where I can max out my retirement plan. Is that your goal? Is that your plan? Then we can do it.
That's right. That's right.
It's
Okay.
it. It's up here.
It's up here. As we wrap up, so what we have to bring you back because we haven't even talked about the
I know
wealth
we didn't get into
building.
it.
Right. We didn't even get to the wealth building stuff we talked about before. Because I think that, we know 67% of our households are headed by black mothers, single black mothers in California. A third of them are living below the federal poverty level.
Right.
A majority work in some type of service industry. Only
Yes.
4% of we only represent 4% of those with bachelor's degrees in California, and yet most jobs are requiring bachelor's degrees, so that just keeps us down. But where's the hope in terms of
Mm,
getting on a good financial
mm,
track for
mm.
Black women in California?
I'm loving this. I am just loving this. And, part of it is knowing the statistics too, right? I mean, part of it is knowing that we're making 54% on the dollar that white men make. And part of it is knowing that 99% of the debt from graduate school, first year graduation, is black women.
Yes.
99% of the debt.
Yep.
There's a reason for that. We're not saving money for our children to go to school. We're not saving enough for ourselves to go to school. The other thing is we have to stay in school. That's why many of us are so overly educated.
Yep.
We need to get our doctorate so we don't have to start paying these bills, the
Yes.
student loans. And at the end of the day, here's hope. I will tell you that it's true that many people are having their student loans forgiven. I have many clients, some are
Right.
black women, who've had their student loans forgiven.
I have friends. It is
Okay.
happening. It is
Yes,
happening.
it is happening. Now, last week there was the deadline to file for forgiveness on the Biden's plan, but that doesn't mean it still won't happen for you. When it happens, here's hope. When it happens, you got to say when, right? We got to speak it into our brain. What are you going to do with that money? Now,
Right.
what you're going to find right now in very high interest rates is that we are buying homes right now. You know why?
Mhm.
They paid off our student loan.
Yep.
We got smart enough to say, I don't have to pay that money to the student loan anymore, so I'm going to get myself a house.
Wonderful.
And that's what you see. We are buying more homes right now as we're speaking than most because of what's happening. So when you hear about the forgiveness of student loans, that is a for black women in this
Right.
country because we can really make a difference. Now, the other part is, I mentioned have building your wealth, budgeting and balancing is very important. Understanding your spending. We didn't talk about the different three C's about spending, but we can do that at another time. But how to start? You got to start somewhere. You know, Many people have accounts already. So let's look at those accounts. Should you be consolidating them? Should you be adding? That's number one. Number two, let's say you're going to add. And the reason you're adding is because the other accounts, you already know what they're for: checking, savings. You might have another one that put away for taxes, I hope, if you're an entrepreneur,
Right.
right? Okay. But you're segmenting. So maybe we used to have something called Christmas Club accounts.
Mm.
It's the same concept. You're just opening an account to save for Christmas.
Right.
So why not open an account to save for you? Pay yourself first account, right? You can do
Mm.
$60. Start with $60. Put it in the account. Every 30 days, put another $30 to $60 in there. Don't even look at it. Be surprised how much money you're gonna make. Dollar a
Wow.
day, 365. Get a can, take a shoe. I'm not real into that, but if that's what it takes for you to just start putting money away, in order for you to shift it to opening an investment account,
Right.
that's what I'm talking about. Get $100 in that can, $200 in that shoe, and say, hey, let me call my brokerage over here at Charles Schwab, who doesn't charge you, and open an account.
Right.
That's one way to start. I have others, but that's one way. And then,
Oh,
of course, saving you to your retirement plan. Don't just sit
right.
there. Oh, by the way, retirement plans, we talked about the 401(a). Here's where most of black women are losing legacy.
Mm.
We are not reviewing our beneficiary on our retirement plans. The 401(a), that pension, if you don't and you pass away, it goes to everybody else in that plan, not the people you want it to go to.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I had two last month, 800,000, $1 million. 800 in one plan, million in one plan, working 30, 40 years for the same company. Where did it go?
Mm.
Not to their family.
Mm.
So let's pay attention to our reviewing our retirement plans beneficiary, please.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to thank you. I think that we just need to create a podcast just for you.
I have one,
Right. That's
but
right.
I just don't do it.
We got to get you to do it because I
I'd
think it,
love to work it. I love doing this kind of stuff
right.
because this is where people can really hear the information, and then there's so many changes around tax laws and stuff in different states. I'm
Facts.
not an accountant, but even in Arizona, people don't know that this was the last year. 2024, starting in January, is the first year where people who live in Arizona have to voluntarily report their earnings from their employer in their retirement plan. Before, it was done through the employer or through their sponsors. We have to do it now.
Oh, wow.
And when you miss that, it's not filing your taxes.
Right.
That's huge.
That's big.
It's
Wow.
big.
Well,
It's
because
big.
yeah, because we know policy drives everything.
Oh man, I tell
And
you.
that we lose ourselves on that. But listen, Kathy, I want to thank you as always. You are just a wealth of information. And again, we want to just make sure that everybody knows what we need to know when it comes to financial. And you have a book, and so I just want to make sure
Yeah,
you talk about you give the name of your book or your website so that we could go to it
I
before
love it.
we shut it down.
Sure. I actually have two books. I'm
Okay.
writing the third. The first one is Surviving Financially in a Rigged System. I'm not necessarily talking about banking systems and all of that being rigged, but we understand we're in systems and how do we get through it. That's one. The other one is God's not done with you yet. Get
That's
up.
right. That's right.
That's right. And both of those are available. You can go to my website, globalinvestmentcompanies.com. We also have another website, www.systemsurvivor.com. And when you go to systemsurvivor.com, you'll be able to buy the book as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Miss Lady. I appreciate you and look forward to talking to you soon.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to it as well.
No worries. All right.
Thanks again.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Wow, wasn't that great? I hope you enjoyed the episode and you found it empowering. You can follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and our YouTube channel. Also, you can find out more information about the California Black Women's Collective Empowerment Institute at www.cablackwomen'scollective.org. See you next time.